Okay, this is a short video to show the repair of the strike plate or the latch plate on a emco Anderson Series 3000 storm door, but this is probably a very generic type of repair. So the issue on these types of things are the latch plate very often does not line up exactly with the latch, okay? And this can cause a problem in closing the door. You can see the way this originally had an adjustment mechanism. So the way this latch plate originally worked is, although it was installed so long ago, I installed it, but I can't remember exactly, and I couldn't find the exact instructions that I used, but you can see that you would adjust the plate using the two lower slots. You could adjust the plate forward or back, or even tilt the angle slightly to get it more or less precisely the way you wanted. Then, having done that, the idea is you would then drill two holes in these spots, and then you would tighten those screws. Now the latch plate is fixed. Okay, you could tighten these ones up here too, but that wouldn't necessarily fix it so much, because you could see that it can slide over time. You might expect this plate to have a tendency to move backwards, possibly. If the latch, when it was locked, for example, was resting against this and someone banged up against the door, it would actually push this plate this way. So over time, the alignment on something like this can get off, particularly if the door has gone through some sort of a traumatic event, such as being ripped open, or you had to do a repair. I had a previous repair on this where it has happened. So what I've noticed in this case is that the door became harder and harder to latch. And what I mean by that is the door would close. Now I've taken off the damper, so the damper's not going to close it. Right there, you see, that door did not latch. Okay. The reason is because there's no spring pulling it closed. What I have up here right now is something that is a spring, but that just prevents it from opening too far. That doesn't close it. Okay. Damper on this door was previously ripped off by a windstorm. So the way this latches now, and this has already been repaired, is by pulling on it slightly, it'll click, because that pulls the latch in so it will strike. Okay. Now if you latched it when it was further out, you'd have quite a gap. You wanted actually to have to pull on it, because that gives you a better seal on the door. Okay. Right now the latch plate is pushed all the way out, so it's not like it could be pushed out any further anyway without a more of a major readjustment. Now what I found is that most recently door would not latch. Now you'll notice that the door will latch sometimes because of the wind. It may push it closed, or you might swing the door closed and the momentum of the door might latch it, but in many cases that doesn't happen and it just sits there. It's not latched. Then you find that it gets ripped open. Okay, you have to pull it until you hear a click. That latches the door. Okay, now what I found is that it wasn't latching. Even by pulling it, it wouldn't latch. The reason was the strike plate had been pushed backward. Okay. Now the reason it had been pushed backward is because the old screw holes had got worn out and it was not holding this in place firmly. The original screws on that were these 4 screws. They were quite small and they had a fine pitch. And over time, if you tighten them or retighten them, you could strip out those threads. And when I tried to readjust this, that the threads were stripped out, so I couldn't readjust it. What I did was I went into my kit. I found some replacement screws that I could get in there. These are screws that have now a bigger diameter, so they will fit into the hole even though it's stripped out. I did put lock washer on these 2 in the middle. I don't have lock washers on these 2 on the end, although I could put lock washers on those also. And the lock washer hopefully might help it from loosening up. Okay, now that I have it adjusted here, it will latch, but it doesn't latch always. It may require a little pull. Okay, I consider that okay. The latching mechanism on a door can be a rather precise alignment, particularly if you want it to latch and you want to get a weather seal, for example. But anyway, this is something which you might call it just common sense, but on the other hand, if you have a latch pad that won't work, I bet it's not a totally uncommon occurrence. And anyway, this is what I did for this one. Thanks.